What is up, gang? Carlton Flowers here, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And it is time for us to talk about this crazy action with BTC and the DXY and try to make some sense out of what has been transpiring the last several days. Of course, we had the unprecedented 8 days in a row of closing with a green candle on the 1-day chart, and we are on the 9th day in the middle of a red candle. So we did not break the record. Now we're going to check out the charts unrehearsed and see what we can figure out, recognizing the fact that anything can happen. And this is not financial advice, but I'll give you a few clues as to what I expect based on how the chart reads. And there are a couple things that I have noticed that could give us a clue as to what we have in store. So let's break down this chart, but first we'll get rid of my handsome face. And here we are on the 4-hour chart. All right, what is the first thing that sticks out like a sore thumb to me? Well, it is this crossover right here. So we finally, on the 4-hour chart, have a crossover of the 200 EMA and the 50 EMA, which is a bullish signal. We haven't had this in a long time. If we zoom out, we don't see this. Let's see if we can just scrunch in here and look at the state of this exponential moving average. Here is your 50, and notice it's just been lagging, bouncing below the 200 all the way down through the slide. If we go back further, we still see the same thing. If I scrunch it down here, it's been since right here, since the big slide back on the 12th of May is the last time that the 50 was up above the 200. And now we are finally back to that point with this crossover. Now, whether or not this holds, I don't know. But it is just kind of a sign here that we haven't seen this in that long of a time, that it is somewhat significant. The next thing we see that is kind of a hint of what's going on. We do have a bearish looking stochastic. It's kind of both of the oscillators are at a pretty downward angle, not totally steep. It's sort of flat, and we've got this little pennant forming right here that we don't really know what this is. Bear flag, bull flag. That looks like a symmetrical triangle to me. And the fast line, which is the %K, keeps on trying to cross over, and it bounces back underneath. And so it looks weak to me. And the lagging indicator here, the MACD oscillators, show the fast line rounding off and dropping below the slow line, the red line. So it looks like a little bit of downward action is happening. Now, how far is it going to go? That is the question. And I think we need to pay special attention to some critical zones. And what happens in these zones, they flip from resistance to support. Now, we jumped up here and we tried to wick up to this resistance zone here, and it didn't make it there. Then we tried to come up again. We were very close to it. It might be just that I don't have this drawn exactly right, but this is a rejection. And since then, we've been kind of crawling downward. So it looks like we tried it. We tried to make it to the 40 to 42,000 area, and we were right at 40, and we just did not get up into this zone. So that is a rejection. What's happening down below? Well, we've got this other zone right here. Now, in history, what did we have? This was a support zone turned resistance when we plowed through it right here. So we came up on this little rebound rally. We made it almost all the way through the zone, and we got rejected. It was resistance. We hit it again. What happened? Rejected, resistance. But since we blew straight through it here, what normally happens is this can flip from being a resistance zone right here to a support zone after this has flipped. Now, something else that is kind of lending towards the evidence of a flip is the crossover of the 200 and the 50 EMA. So here it is. We could be coming back down to this zone right here, and it might act as a support. That's just all I have to go by right now. And if we do kind of slide all the way down, there's a couple things that could go on. We could bounce on the 50-day and move back up. But if we don't bounce on that 50-day, we could pull the 50-day all the way back down into the zone, where then we'll see, do we bounce up out of this? Now, if it takes some time to get here, I'm going to tell you what, the 200 EMA is going to be cranking on along here, coming on up, and it might make it up into this zone. Now, if we haven't touched the zone yet and the 200 makes it up here, well, that's too big of a coincidence. I think that if we're up in the zone on the 200 and we're below the 50, we're going to bounce on that. We'll probably move back up again and retest this area of support and resistance. Now, what will it do from there? Well, we're going to have to just jump over to another chart before we hit up the 1 day, because the 1 day is pretty clear to me as to what's going on. Let's look at the DXY. And it's like, what are you doing, DXY? We were on this nice long tear. You know, we had this progression here just flying high, touching down on the 50 and bouncing above it each time. And then we failed it right here. And then what is this mess here? We just bombed straight through the 50, and then we just blew straight through the 200. This is just on the 4 hour. And now we have this teeny tiny little green candle where it looks like it's trying to put the brakes on. Now, at the same time, the stochastic is looking bearish. The slow line is above the fast line, but the fast line is trying to curl up a little bit. And the MACD, which is lagging behind, shows the diversion. This is separating itself. The fast line is separating itself from the slow line because of this strong dive. What is the DXY going to do? I don't know. If the DXY continues to bomb, if it continues to do this, and that's show over for DXY, that means that Bitcoin is probably going to have a heyday. Now, let me warn you, just because DXY dives does not mean it's guaranteed that Bitcoin goes up, because there have been some times in the past where the DXY went down and Bitcoin went down, and vice versa. We've seen some instances of the DXY and Bitcoin moving in conjunction. So don't take that with a grain of salt. But 9 times out of 10, we have opposite movement of the DXY and Bitcoin. Let's just look at the 1 day on the DXY. And this is interesting. This is a little bit more clear how we have this ugly stochastic that is just diving down. We have this peak that happened on the MACD, and now its oscillators are diving down. We have the histogram in the negative, but look where it is right now. It's touching on the 200 EMA. We violated the 50. It's touching on the 200. What could that mean? That could mean that the DXY starts to do this and goes on another bounce. Now, if it does that, Bitcoin will correct. More than likely, it's high probability. I'm not saying it'll happen. Again, not financial advice, and this is not the prediction that I'm looking to get bragging points for. I'm just telling you what we can expect from the highest probability of what the charts are reading. And as we know, after you saw the big breakout on Bitcoin last week and on the weekend when we all thought it was time to dip down to 20K and it blew up out of nowhere, that's your lesson that you know that you cannot say, you can't count out the fact that the Bitcoin movement can crush, destroy, annihilate every one of these indicators that are on the chart with the technicals. All right, now we can go ahead and move to the 1 day. And this 1 day is a lot more interesting. Let's pull this down a little bit. And looking at the support resistance zones on the 1 day and the positioning of the stochastic and MACD, gives us a little bit more of a clue of what we can expect to see and what the highest probability is. Now, you notice here's the 8 days of green candles. Here's our 9th day, and we have a red. There's our little red. We have the rejection right here at the top of the support resistance zone. We have the point of control price down here at 33.9. All right. However, up above, like we just mentioned, we have this support resistance zone right here that's at 36,000 and change. Now, looking at the stochastic, it's really weird because we were on this peak and then we looked like we were going to flip where the fast line went below the slow. Then it reversed, went back up, and then it crossed over, and now the fast line is above the slow again, but we're forming a red candle here. So then this should pull the fast line back below the slow, and we should get a reversal. Now this is crazy. We're peaked out on the histogram, and this is a very bullish movement here with this the oscillators on the MACD. Let's scrunch that down so it looks more realistic. That looks a lot more realistic there. All right, now the histogram is up here in the nice little positive range, but is it going to peak out? It probably could and reverse and start to move back down towards the zero line. Normally when you see a big, strong, bullish movement like what we just had, 8 days in a row of green bars, there's got to be a correction at some point. We can expect that. So in all likelihood, if I had to guess based on the chart, not financial advice, don't go betting the farm on it or coming back mad because, well, Crypto Bro said it was going to go down and the daggone thing blew up to 50,000. I expect this to happen, and I expect us to test this support resistance zone. This will tell us what the next step is. Now, the reason why I think that we may have seen the bottom might be in, guys, okay? And the reason why I think that is just because we've blown through July. We were supposed to see the big capitulation happen in July and a strong comeback at the end of July. Well, we're running into August and we're running out of time on that theory. So this could be it. It might be the bottom. And the other thing is this, that the DXY loses its strength, and we've got some crazy news going down, negative news, FUD on the DXY. If that gets drugged down, we might have already seen the bottom. Now, I am watching to see how this affects the alts. What I want to see is a correction here, at least to this 36,000 level. If we get that, that's when I will absolutely start my DCA game. It's DCA time if we get here, all right? And it could go lower. We could go back down and test the point of control. We could go all the way back down to the bottom of the triangle here before we start our trip back up and start the bullish movement or the resumption of the bullish trend. A flip of the bearish trading channel, the end of the correction, and the start of the swing upwards. And so from this point, we could see a very strong bullish movement to jump back to this node or this node at about, what, 58, somewhere around there. And then after that point, it's going to be the same old story. You're going to have a correction, and then you'll have another, move upward from that point. Let's make that green. There we go. That's the type of stuff that you're going to have. So it looks like what I was talking about in the previous two videos about testing 40K, I didn't want that to happen, but it did happen. I wanted to see the 20K to drag down alts as cheap as possible so I could start buying alts. I don't trade Bitcoin. I got like $100 in Bitcoin, but I have a pile of alts. So I will be waiting to see how far down this little correction right here can drag the alts. I want to see what happens there. If we can get our alts to move down, I'm looking at jumping back into Filecoin. I've been DCAing on Filecoin. I have one thus far. ICP, I'd like to DCA on ICP because I aped in on it at 65. That was dumb. I would like to get my position back in Link. Chainlink, I was going to jump in at 13, but I thought I was going lower, and I did not. I'm also looking at getting a small position in Loom again, which Loom is doing good. Darn, it's at like 8.6 cents, so it's looking strong. Anchor is up to 8.3 cents. AMP is at 7.3 cents. DNT, 14 cents. Matic at $1. I mean, so on and so forth. Key, self-key is at 0.0068. We got Telcoin at like 1.8 cents, and I'm looking at. We've got POLX, which I'll be shooting a video on, that is settled down at a nice price where I think it has seen the bottom. A lot of these are looking like they're at the bottom, but I want to get that last discount. I may not have caught the bottom. Nobody can. You can't perfectly predict the bottom. But after this move, that's where I'm ready to jump and strike while the iron is hot. So that's all I've got to say. Share in the comments what your thoughts are, what you think that Bitcoin is going to do if we get this correction. Do you believe we'll dip down to 36 and blow up from there? Or do you think that we'll go down to 33 or test the bottom of the triangle and revisit the 30K one more time before we move up? Time will only tell. And until then, my eyes are glued to the screen. This is Carl DeFlowers, your crypto pro, and that's all I got for now. And I am out.